Welcome back to another Sunday School Bible class. Today's lesson is entitled Joseph. Do you remember what we've learned so far? Remember, Jacob stole the special blessing from his brother Esau and had to flee to his uncle Laban's house to escape his brother's anger? On the way there, Jacob had a dream where God spoke to him and told him that he was going to bless him, protect him, and one day bring Jacob back to the land of Canaan. God also promised Jacob that the Savior of the world would come from Jacob's family many years later. Jacob worked very hard for 20 years and raised a big family and was blessed with many cattle and sheep. After 20 years, Jacob decided to go back to the land of Canaan. During the trip, he was met by an angel who changed his name to Israel. When he met with Esau, he was a changed man, and Esau forgave him. The brothers made peace, and each one went his separate way. Today's lesson is about what happened to Jacob and his family in the land of Canaan. Remember, Jacob had a very large family of 12 sons. His older sons were very bad and caused all kinds of trouble. His two youngest sons, Benjamin, the youngest, which you see in the picture there with the blue coat, and Joseph, were very good and Jacob's favorites. In fact, Jacob loved his son Joseph so much he made him a special coat. The older brothers hated Joseph because their father sent Joseph to check on them, and Joseph reported to his father on their evil doings. Joseph's older brothers were very jealous of Joseph. They hated Joseph. One day, Joseph had a dream that all of the stalks of grain of his brothers bowed down to him. And then he had another dream that the sun, moon, and the 11 stars bowed down to him. So it was really like his brothers and his father were bowing down to him. When Joseph told his dreams to his brothers, they hated him even more because of his dreams. One day, when Joseph was 17, his father sent him out to check on his older brothers. When they saw him coming, they got so angry they threw him in a pit, which is a big hole in the ground. Then they saw a bunch of traveling merchantmen passing by. Merchants are people who buy and sell things, or sometimes they buy or sell servants like slaves. The brothers decided to sell Joseph as a slave to these merchants. Many times slaves were treated very badly. Sometimes they would be beaten by their masters. Slaves had to work very hard and had to do everything they were told to do. Can you imagine how mean these brothers were to sell their own brother as a slave? They sold him for 20 pieces of silver. They knew that when they got home, they would have to explain what happened to Jacob, their father. So they planned to tell their father a lie and make their father think that Joseph was killed by a wild animal. How did they do this? They killed one of the goats and put the blood of the goat on Joseph's coat. Then they took the coat home to their father and told their old father Jacob that they found Joseph's coat but did not know what happened to Joseph. When Jacob saw the coat with the blood, he thought that a wild animal killed Joseph. Jacob felt so badly for his son, Joseph, thinking that Joseph was eaten by a wild animal and that he was dead somewhere and that he would never see him again. He cried and cried many, many days for his favorite son, Joseph. Meanwhile, the merchants took Joseph as a slave to a far country called Egypt, where they sold Joseph to a man named Potiphar. Joseph was not free to do as he pleased. In Egypt, Joseph had to learn another language and work hard. But God was with Joseph even in Egypt. Joseph did his best and was on his best behavior. He was very honest and never stole anything from his master. Joseph did not complain. Even here, he had a good attitude. Potiphar liked Joseph very much. One day, Potiphar had to go away and left Joseph in charge of everything. When Potiphar returned, Potiphar's wife lied and said Joseph tried to hurt her. But she lied. He did not try to hurt her. Potiphar was so upset he had Joseph thrown in prison. Poor Joseph was in prison for doing nothing wrong, but God was with Joseph even in prison. Joseph, when he was thrown in prison, there were 2 other men with him. One night, these 2 other men had dreams that they did not understand. Joseph correctly interpreted both of the dreams. He understood and explained the dreams. And when one of the men was released to go back to the palace, Joseph asked the man to speak to the Pharaoh on his behalf so he could get out of prison also. Pharaoh is like the king. They're called Pharaoh. But the man forgot about Joseph and he stayed in prison, Joseph did, for 2 more years. One night, the Pharaoh had a dream that no one could explain. Nobody in his palace understood what the dream meant. Finally, that servant who had been released from prison 2 years earlier remembered how Joseph could explain dreams. At the Pharaoh's command, Joseph was taken from prison and brought to the palace, and in front of Pharaoh, Joseph immediately gave credit to God for his ability to understand dreams and then listened to the Pharaoh's dream. When we come back, we're going to find out what Pharaoh dreamed and what the dream meant, and how this dream and Joseph's ability to interpret the dream changed Joseph's life and the life of his brothers forever.